Welcome to the Athletic Approach, where we will guide you through the intricate maze of the mind in sports.
The Athletic Approach is brought to you by Culture and Sport, where we believe that culture is critical to long-term success. I'm Kristen Banowski.
And I'm Manisha Agarwal, and this is the Athletic Approach, where we don't just play the game, we understand it.
One of the things I wanted to ask you about is right now, do you have a current mindfulness practice? And I know you mentioned when you can't sleep, you do a body scan, but I was wondering if there are other times that you intentionally add some kind of mindfulness.
Oh, sometimes when I sometimes when I have a few meetings just at work with one-to-one students, because sometimes I don't know what they're about to say,
Mm-hmm.
or if they've come into me with something that I've not dealt with before, or I'm worried just that I'm not capable, or that I won't be able to help them. So I then will practice some breathing, um and that's just so that my heart rate isn't going like this. And I'm bringing myself again back into that moment, because I then have to remind myself that I'm getting myself into my own head, and I need to be present for the person that's about to tell me these things that they're about to share with me.
You don't even know
Um,
at that point if they're going to be bad. You're just assuming the worst.
yeah, exactly, exactly. So, and it's yeah, but I think that comes with my own doubts, like I don't, because I just don't know what to expect. And I think that's so kind of natural when you're working with someone new, and you don't know what it is that they need help with. So, and if I'm not present for them, then I won't be able to help them in a way that they'd like to be helped,
Yeah.
because I'm so in my own head, and I won't be listening to them. And if I don't listen to what they have to say, then how can I help them if I'm not listening to, and
Yeah, I think
taking it?
that's completely fair. And you're meeting someone new for the first time. I've done a bit of recovery and nutrition coaching, and you want to be present enough to ask the right questions so that when
Mm,
you're by yourself and thinking about, okay, what's the next step they need to do to move forward, you have all the information that you need. And if you
yeah.
I don't know. I know that I found I'm like, oh, damn, I should have asked these things, or I don't know about this, or like it's really important in those scenarios to really be attentive.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So, yeah, that would be for me when I'd use them. I don't think I ever use them much within dance.
Do you wish you had? Because you don't do dance as competitively anymore, right? Do you wish you had done it
Yeah,
before?
I think I did. Yeah, I think I do wish that I I integrated it more, because I tried to do it once with the team. Like, I played this audio, and it just didn't work. Everyone just found it strange. Everyone was laughing, and again, that's why again it's important to understand
How
your
long ago
audience.
was
But
that?
that was last year
Really?
in Feb. Yeah, so that was quite recent. Um,
That's
but
interesting because I feel like
yeah,
maybe it's just the circle I'm in, social media just shows you what you're interested in. But I feel like talking about mindfulness and meditation is becoming, and also, of course, a lot of the people on my social media are other athletes who I'm friends with. So a lot of the
mhm,
stuff that I consume as content is has something to do with meditation, mindfulness, stuff like that. So if someone were to present that to me, it almost feels normal now. Where if someone said that to me
yeah,
5, 10 years ago, I'd be embarrassed or awkward about it. But now I'm just kind
yeah.
of yeah, cool, that sounds fun.
Yeah, I mean, I think it could even just be a maturity age thing.
Ah,
Like, it could be something that can gradually, you kind of then get used to.
yeah.
So I think, yeah, I think that comes with because I mean, I think as well the fact that it was in a university context,
Hmm.
um, and because because I feel like if it was one to one or they did it by themselves, I think that that could have been fine. But I think it was the fact that it was a group thing.
Hmm.
They were probably a bit like what is going on? And I don't think a lot of it was new to them as well. So it's a bit like what, like literally what is going on?
Oh, that's
Um,
interesting. And like
yeah,
almost, I feel like within the group, yeah, you're right. And one on one, it might have gone better, but then suddenly, if you ask someone to close their eyes or whatever, if you were sitting in a group and you've never done it before, instead you're kind of like looking around, like, is everyone else doing it too? Like, are we
yeah,
actually doing this? Are we gonna make fun of this?
yeah, no, exactly. And I wish well, to be fair, I I did use um so obviously like after performances I'd have panic attacks.
Hmm.
So what my friend would do is she would um like she'd like draw a letter or a number behind my back, like on my back,
Uh-huh.
and then I'd have to like guess like what that
I was
letter
totally
and
okay.
number
So
is.
we spoke about this the last time, and I
Mm.
remember thinking about our conversation after, and I was like, I wish I asked her how she got out of those panic moments. Like sometimes
Yeah.
they just go away. But yeah, that's so okay. So she would draw a letter or number on your back, and you would guess what it was.
Yeah, because it brought me back to the moment and focus on what I'm feeling
Wow.
because because my mind's elsewhere and it works and it's because it's taking your concentration from somewhere else and bringing it back to like sort of to like ground you. So yeah, it works. And then there's other things like I can't quite remember like how many of each it is, but it's like 5 things that you can um see, 4 things that you can hear,
Oh yeah, I have heard this before.
yeah, 3 things that you can feel, 2 things that you can smell, and 1 thing that you can taste, something like that. Yeah, don't quote me on the numbers, but something like that. And it's um another way again because you're practicing like your senses, and because of that, you're being again present, like how you would be with mindfulness, but
Hmm.
it's just a different way of doing it where it isn't sat just doing breath work.
So you brought your friend in on these moments of anxiety. Like what was that process like? Did she see you struggling or did they see you struggling or um how did that go?
So it was quite obvious when I'd have a panic attack because I would literally like be out of breath. I'd be like crying. Like I was just a hot mess, honestly. So
And
it,
where would it happen? Like you're still on stage or do you go off stage and then afterwards?
yeah, afterwards.
Okay.
So that's when it would happen. Because usually like, once we're off stage, we're all together and we're like, oh, like, like how did we all like think that went? So we're naturally all together like when we come off stage. So that's where it, then sort of starts. Um, but yeah. So yeah, it's interesting because yeah, it comes in different forms. And there's no kind of one way around it, and it completely depends on your sport situation and how much time you can actually allocate to practicing the skills.
So when your friend noticed that you were struggling with this, did you ask, like, did she intuitively know what to do, or did you guys have a conversation about what to do when this is happening, or like, how did you
Mm.
arrive on like bringing you back to the present moment and how she could help?
So the first time it initially happened was after a dance class. So I had a panic attack because in a similar thing um with being on stage in classes, sometimes you're put into smaller groups. And the fact that I know that I'm being watched, so it was that thing that gave me anxiety was like the thought of being watched.
Hmm.
And so when I did like this class and we were in smaller groups, that's kind of when I felt a panic attack coming on. So um, and she noticed it straight away, and we went into the toilets, and she kind of just she did it straight away, and I'm not actually quite sure how she knew to do it. I think she had panic attacks herself as well, like kind of like in the past. So I think that's something that she's actually then picked up on. Um, but yeah, so yeah, I don't think it was ever like a thing that she was, trained in, because that was, oh gosh, like we would have been 18 when that happened. And I don't think you're ever trained like at any point in education on how to like deal with a
Yeah.
situation like that.
Yeah, so you would think like knowing techniques of how to calm you down and help bring you back to the present, that's like either something she's experienced herself or she's helped someone else through, I would assume.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And I know there was another time when someone helped me by telling me to breathe in through my nose and out through my mouth, but it was the way that she said it was in a humorous way.
Mm.
So again, so that I can, again, it's like more of a distraction. I
Yeah.
think that's the best word. It's a distraction away
Yeah,
from it,
because
so that you could.
I feel like if you tell someone to breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth, you're like, oh, thanks. Like, I haven't heard that one before.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So, the way that she said it was in a funny way, so that so it was, a distraction. Um, but you're also trying to catch your breath, so it's kind of like the best of both almost.
Hmm.
But the prime goal again was to get me back to the present, but it was through humor.
Hmm.
Um, and again, I think that was a different person. So I think the way that she knew to do that was again because I knew that she was someone that dealt with a lot of anxiety and depression. So I think again, so it's a lot of these things are, through personal experience that people know how to overcome situations, and then, and they can then, are equipped to help someone else when they see, the signs.
Hmm.
Um, yeah,
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 I think that's a really great like takeaway to like learn if you or someone you see is in that kind of experience, honestly, is how,
mm,
because I think a lot of times people can feel pretty helpless, to be honest, like if they see
yeah,
someone having a panic attack. And so it's really cool that you've shared that experience, and
mm,
maybe someone might be better equipped to help someone in the future.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Not to veer away from that because I think that's so interesting. But one thing that I struggle with, I think, is how to add mindfulness into my life. And I was wondering if you
Mm,
had any advice, or how like you told me, like obviously before, like you have meetings and stuff. But if I
mm.
wanted to have a general practice, I think it's really hard to get in a routine of having it every day. And I don't know if you have any recommendations on how to like build it into your life, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. I think it would be to create it as a habit. So, I think there's a saying that I don't know what the saying, but something, something, and it turns into a habit. I know that it's always on Instagram, but I can't think of it. Um, so I think with that, the best thing to do, um, is to like, so I guess it depends on how you create your day-to-day routine. And if that's through like scheduling, or if that's through creating a checklist, add it to those things.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you know that you've got a busy day ahead of you, make sure it's the first thing that you do, then it's like out the way. And if you are busy, like I said, 30 seconds, you can give up even just 30 seconds of your time to be able to do that. Um, so I think that would be my advice, is to start small, um, and integrate it into your schedule, or how it is that you organize yourself. And you don't have to do, like I said, like long, like, what am I trying to say? Like, you don't have to spend too much time on it where you're, I guess, where it's too much of a change, so it's not sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
So by starting small, you can then create those habits because you know that it's manageable and then it's consistent with what it is that you then want to do. And then you can then build on that once it becomes a habit. And it's sort of like going to the gym. So, if you want to, increase your fitness and, you think to yourself, yeah, I'm going to go to the gym 4 times a week, but you've never been to the gym ever before. But then if you start by going once a week and then for like a month, and then you can build that up to like twice a week, a
Yeah.
month, and it's that gradual build. So, and it's similar again with mindfulness. It's taking X amount of time, whether that's again a minute, 2 minutes, and then gradually increasing it. But then you don't even need to increase it because if you can feel the benefits, then you know you you're thriving.
Yeah. I feel
But
like a
yeah,
common thing with me is like, oh, I decide to do mindfulness and then I'm gung ho and I almost like bite off more than I can chew. It's like, oh, I'm
mm,
gonna do it for 20 minutes every day, and I'm able to do that for 4 or 5 days, and then suddenly life gets busy. But I've committed to 20 minutes, and if I can't do 20 minutes, then I'm not doing it at all. And
yes,
yeah, that becomes a
it's that
problem.
spiral.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I think that really aligns with goal setting. And if your goals feel too big and almost like you can't feel like you can achieve them, you feel like a failure when you don't achieve them.
100%. Yeah.
So yeah, no, absolutely. So it's all about taking, small steps and
Yeah.
being consistent.
Yeah, it's like sometimes you try and be the best athlete possible, and you like I've done it before. I'm like, I'm going to write down a list of all these things that are going to make me amazing. But if you actually look at how much time all of these things are going to take, you're going to have like
Yeah,
you just don't have enough time in the day to do all the things that you should be doing to be a great athlete. And then and
exactly.
then you I personally anyway, I'm really hard on myself when I don't tick off everything on that list. And then
Yeah,
yeah, and it almost becomes worse than if I just prioritize a couple of things.
yeah, exactly. So it is just taking it like each bit at a time, but some things work and some things don't. So,
Hmm.
like for example, with the visualization, so we've talked a little bit about visualization and how that's another mental skill. And with that, essentially, the first aspect of visualization is getting yourself um, relaxed, and you can do that through mindfulness. So that's kind of how both of them can really um, kind of overlap and be integrated. So getting yourself into a relaxed state, and in a nutshell, visualization, you, to the best of your ability, are recreating what it would be like playing your sport, and specifically thinking about certain situations and scenarios where you may feel nervous, or anything that you want to tackle that you want to be better prepared for.
Hmm.
And again, that's using all your senses and really imagining what that scenario feels like. From kind of, what you can see when you visualize who's in your space, what's the temperature like when you're there, what are you wearing, how does your body feel, what have you ate that day, all these different things. But yeah, what's your experience of visualization?
Yeah, so I wanted to really integrate it before into my life before talking about it, but I really struggled with that just because of where I am in season, which kind of goes back to what we were just talking about like trying to do everything you should do, like everything possible to be the best athlete. And like right now, because I'm in a off season slash general prep kind of phase, fitting in visualization probably isn't my key priority right now. And I don't know exactly what I would be visualizing. Maybe some like slow eccentric squat technique. But um, I've had, so we use visualization often in bobsleigh because you don't get actually that many reps.
Mm,
So, and that's one way we've used it for actual technical work. But then a second way that I've been fortunate enough to use it. I was working with a mental performance coach, and each morning he had this audio clip that I would listen to. And it was kind of like a motivational thing, kind of set you up for the day, focus on your goals. And I thought it was great. I thought it helped me start my day off well and remind me like where my goals are immediately, had me think about my goals down the road, and just really rooted me in like, this is my purpose for the day. The issue I had was when I got to that goal down the road, it wasn't what I visualized. And it made it, I think, that much more heartbreaking. So
Mm.
when we were preparing to go to the Olympics in China, initially when I started this visualization, I visualized the end of the last run of the Olympics and my parents being there at the finish. But if you didn't know, the Olympics in China ended up being spectator free because people couldn't go because of COVID. But I
Mhm.
knew that pretty far in advance. So I stopped visualizing my parents there because they weren't going to be there. But then I visualized so deeply, like my boyfriend being there, my teammate's husband being there, like having a result that we were really proud of. And then when that didn't happen, it was like I'm in the
Mm.
exact spot that I visualized, but this is not the feeling, this is not the excitement that I had been working towards in my head. And so it was almost like I'd been there a million times, but this moment that I'm here now isn't what I visualized, and it was hard.
Mhm. Yeah, and I know that with visualization, it is that be what you visualize is something that has to be realistic. So I know that we've spoken a little bit about this, like, when you do have these visualizations and whatever it is that your goals are, it's ensuring that what you are visualizing is something that is realistic.
Yeah,
And
and
even though,
it wasn't unrealistic what I was visualizing. Like we it it's not that it wasn't realistic. It was just gonna be hard to achieve, and we were close but didn't get it.
yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, because I was just going to say that even though it was, because it wasn't like a skill based thing, because the things that that you felt and sort of disappointed by, with like spectators not being there, and that, and then understanding that that's out of your control.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that goes back to that self awareness and, being aware of what it is that you can and can't control.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't invalidate, how you feel and, what it's like when you get to those moments at all. And I think it's like sports psychologists, we need to also be aware and make sure that who we're working with, that they're aware that what, all these skills doesn't guarantee X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And that's massive. And because we can't guarantee that, that isn't a thing. But we can help, we can, educate, we can provide, the tools. Um, but it doesn't mean, you will get that result. Um, but kind of going back to your experience, when you visualize something so much, and because it almost becomes like this stream, that is what it is that you want to do,
Mm-hmm.
want to experience. um and that is kind of, some of like the negatives of it is the effects of, well, what happens when it, if it doesn't happen.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was a really powerful way to visualize because I did feel a difference when I chose to do that each morning and how it set up my day and my focus. It was just hard when it was over, and I had visualized this every day for over half a year, more than
Mm.
that, probably like 8 months. And yeah, um,
Yeah,
you
I
took me.
think that a lot of
Sorry, go
that,
ahead. Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, and I
No,
was just going to say that like really like links into like athlete identity,
yeah.
because you do this so much and suddenly it's done,
Hmm.
and it's like, now what? And I think that that's an element of, well, what's next? What's the next thing? And you almost forget who you are within all of that, like away from your sport. And I think because things are so structured and you were doing all these things, and then it just comes to an end. It's like, whoa.
Yeah, I was actually I was reading about something, and it was the biggest when football players stop, because football players obviously is a big team sport, and bobsleigh is similar. Like, we live with our teammates half the year and stuff. So I can relate to this a lot, but they're the biggest cause of like depression and emotional issues when someone retires from football isn't because they miss the thrill of the game or whatever it is. It's the camaraderie that they experienced, and the always being around their teammates, and like just that whole atmosphere, it's just gone.
Yeah, yeah.
And I feel like a lot of like, I'm sure lots of people do this, but like bobsleigh, because we live with our teammates for 4 or 5 months straight pretty much, and then suddenly we're cut off. It's a really common, that's a feeling that we feel a lot too, and something that I felt a lot. Like, suddenly March or April comes around and I'm not surrounded by my teammates all the time, and it's this really
Mm,
weird feeling. Like,
yeah.
yeah, and like you can get some pretty low lows and you don't really recognize where they're coming from, and I'm sure it's a contributing factor.
Mm, absolutely, absolutely. And it's one of those things where everyone will experience at some point. And again, that's something that psychologists can help with away from mental skills. Like, it's not just performance enhancement. It is those things where we can speak to athletes about their identity, what life looks like after. It goes into so many different things. So yeah, no, thank you for sort of sharing that.
Yeah. As like you kind of just briefly touched on it, but what would you, if someone was struggling with life after sport or worrying about life after sport coming up, what would you kind of advise them to do?
I I think like right now is to try new things, integrate yourself into a new hobby, a new skill, or even like do some online courses or do an online degree or something. Just anything that isn't related to your sport that you are able to do when your sport is no longer there.
Yeah.
And it is as simple as that, but it's also understanding who you are as a person, and it's developing that understanding that, so let's take yourself for example. So that you, Kristen, you're not a bobslayer, you are a person who plays that sport.
Mm-hmm.
And it's literally that difference. um so yeah, that would be sort of my biggest advice, is to make that distinction. um but but if you want to do something a bit more tangible, then it is, learning new skills, whether that's a language or, I don't know, knitting. Like Tom Daly, he does a lot of knitting. Like, you see that a lot. So, and I think, I'm sure he's spoken about how that's a good way that he sort of winds himself down. So yeah, so pick up a skill. Um, but also don't feel like when you fail, it means you're a bad person, because you can detach yourself from your sport, because the sport doesn't determine your own self-worth. So
Mm-hmm.
could go on forever with that, but that's one for another episode.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, I think that's some good advice. I think in my own life, I've found huge benefit in my own self-worth and my own fear of leaving the sporting world. Um,
yeah.
Developing a lot of different hobbies and putting in time to learn about different things and developing myself outside of me as an athlete. Because honestly, I think there have been times in my life, if you told asked me what my hobbies were, I'd be like, oh, watching Netflix, recovering from sport, I don't know, like I train, that's it. And so now, like, I there's a lot of other things that I do enjoy doing, and exploring for me personally, it's artistic and creative things that I really enjoy doing, or listening to or talking on a podcast.
Yeah, no, exactly, exactly. And I think that's so good because you don't have to currently be playing in your sport to be able to do those things.
Yeah.
And again, that's that's the difference. Or it's picking up coaching qualifications if you still want to be within sport, but
Mm-hmm.
you're not a full-time athlete anymore. Yeah, so many different ways. But yeah, no, I think those are some things that we can definitely go into in hopefully in another season.
Yeah.
But yeah, this season has been good.
Yeah.
Um, to kind of listen to your experiences, of kind of trying different mental skills. Um, and yeah, but that was over, such a short amount of time. So
Mm-hmm.
definitely, keep going with it and we can sort of see, I guess, how that progresses
Yeah.
if you choose to keep it.
Yeah, I appreciate you being, well, I appreciate your knowledge with the mental skills, but also um, for you being vulnerable enough to answer a lot of difficult questions, to open up about different things that you've struggled with. I think it's really cool. And that's a wrap for today's episode of The Athletic Approach. We hope you gain new insights into the mental dimensions of sport performance and are inspired to dive deeper into this fascinating field.
The Athletic Approach is produced by Manisha Agwal and Dr. Jeremy Piasecki at Culture and Sports.
If today's discussion sparked your curiosity and you want to learn more, head over to cultureandsports.com. We've got a wealth of resources, articles, and research to help you understand the mental game even better.
And don't forget, you can also connect with us on your favourite social media platforms. Whether you're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, TikTok, or YouTube, you can join our community for more insightful discussions, expert tips, and a behind the scenes look at the world of mental sports.
Remember, the mind is a powerful tool in any athlete's training. The more you understand it, the better your game. So keep learning, keep growing, and keep pushing your limits.
Thank you for tuning in to The Athletic Approach, where we go beyond the physical and explore the psychological. Until next time, stay strong, stay focused, and embrace the mental game.